is what we're trying to do. Do you have any suggestions? Should we challenge them? Should we suck up? I don't know.
Well, one of the great things I would say in this process, one of the reasons why I just tell you why I joined the Air Force when I was coming out of, I was in seminary. It was 2 reasons. I think for poor people's draft, I wanted to pay for seminary. But also I liked the fact it was ecumenical. I liked the fact that when I was going in, the Air Force chaplaincy allowed for a place where everybody's faith could be appreciated. And I think that's an important piece. From the church standpoint, I mean, obviously the church has always had a huge, I'm a big fan of separation of church and state. Because I think that there's obvious possibility of people. And I think that also, I think that one of the things there, unfortunately, one of the reasons why I love particularly the black church in particular was created because it was kicked out of the white church. Yeah. I mean, literally, they used to get happy and start shouting. I mean, they would be in the balcony and they would get happy and then they would fall out and fall on top of white people. White people got mad, getting fell on, so they just put them out. So that's how the black, but that church then became not just faith-based, but survival-based as well. And I think what the problem now we have to recognize is James Crowe Jr. understood that church, which was so powerful in the 60s, and he had to undercut that. So he moved it from people-based and survival-based to prosperity-based. And that's important so that a lot of those institutions that were also powerful have become institutionalized and are only in the business of being in business. And so, but the thing that has not gone away is that the rank and file in faith. Now, for me as a person of faith, as you ask that question, I think that you must go forward and you must stand up, either Muslim or Christian or Buddhist or atheist or agnostic. I think it's human. I think people are recognizing they must put humanity first. And you must challenge them on that premise. If you are in a faith tradition, I think that you should challenge them on the premise that it is time to put, for instance, we didn't elect a Democrat or Republican Congress, we elected a Congress to put humanity first. And so we're looking, I think, I agree with Cindy that we need a people's Congress. I think we need a human Congress. And so I would just say this, we need to continue to go to the people and challenge them, particularly for Christians. Let me just say this little piece. It's important that the guy that Christians follow behind was crucified, fighting against status quo in empires. Now, you can't forget, and it was so hot and heavy that his cousin, John, who was John the Baptist, was beheaded because of fighting empires. And a lot of times they get cookies and cream, but it's not cookies and cream. This young Palestinian Jew comes together outside of the confines of the institution, gets together with his cousin, who is then beheaded, and himself is then killed by the empire and is crucified. And the powerful thing about that story, that even though he's killed, the movement continues. Yeah. And the people continue to push forward for justice. And that's what we can't forget. And I think if more people of faith hear that message and hear that story, instead of hearing about some God and some Jesus who doesn't like gays and doesn't like blacks and doesn't like all other people, I think then you see some change.
Okay, I was an actual youth minister for 8 years too, so I do come from a faith background. But what frightens me in our country is the right-wing Christians who think that this George Bush is all part of, the divine plan to bring about Armageddon, and I just tell them, well, if that's true, he must be the Antichrist, So I tell a little story. This is why I never go to Walmart. This is one of my stories. Besides them being, oppressive to people in China and undercutting all kinds of businesses and everything in America, I was driving from Crawford to Galveston. My friend Jerry had to buy some sandals. Well, every town in Texas of probably 800 people or more has a Walmart. So we had to go to Walmart. And this lady gets out of the car when she sees me. She's like, oh my God. She said, Bush all the way. And I went, yeah, all the way to hell, And she goes, I'll be in heaven with Jesus and George Bush. And I was just like, whatever, lady. And so we went in the store, came out, she chased me out of the store. She's like, why do you disgrace your son? So I turn around. I'm getting to do a pretty good Texas accent now. I spent too much time there. And so I got right in her face, and I said, I don't disgrace my son. George Bush and you do. And she goes, George Bush is all part of the plan. And I said, what plan? She goes, the plan in the Bible. And I said, I know something about the Bible. Where's that plan? She goes, it's all over the Bible. And then I smelled the alcohol in her breath. Okay, lady, why don't you go home and sober up? And I'm like, it's only 2:30 in the afternoon, please. And she goes, I only had one beer. And then she chases me to my car, and she's screaming at me about, oh, my God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. I said, my God's the God of peace. And I don't think my God approves of what your God is doing. And so anyway, that is what's frightening, because, again, these neocons have partnered with the right-wing Christians to enforce this ideology of marrying church and state. That if you go against the state, you're going against God. And it's all part of this plan. Those Left Behind books are so subversive and damaging. And so they think that this is, I don't like war, they tell me, and I don't like killing, but it has to be done because Jesus has to come back and save us. So I'm for the left reclaiming faith, but not a dogmatic faith. But I'm against people like Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and John Edwards, who all say they would nuke Iran to talk about faith. You know, I think that you have to be consistent in your faith. And, you know, if they believe in Jesus came to overturn the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who was a punitive, violent God. You know, he came to overturn all that and bring us to a world where war ended. So it's a very, that's one of the other reasons that we're in this mess. And I believe the 22% who still support this war, most of them, if they're not profiting in a huge, this lady wasn't rich. This lady obviously wasn't being helped by the Bush regime, but she didn't care. She didn't care because, you know, this was on the plan, and she knows she's going to heaven with George Bush, and I'm like, well, then go. Why don't you all just go? You know, swim in your pools and drink your brandy and smoke your Cuban cigars. Just get out, you know, and make the world a more sustainable place. So claim a human faith, you know, a faith based on humanity, not on dogmatic murder.